Is often a friend or family member before they're an ally. This means that while race or privilege is still in play on some level, the homie and whomever they're aligned to are pretty far beyond that aspect of their relationship being overly important. One reason for this is that to a great extent, the homie doesn't really fully identify with their privileged identity or really inhabit that space among their marginalized group. Their alignment to that group homie will habitually and reflexively use whatever privilege they do have access to shield their marginalized peers. And they do this not because they expect or are seeking recognition or reward, because understand, I don't care how many of my videos you watch, there will be no cookout invitations. If you think you've been invited to the cookout at any point in time since then, it comes from the down-ass white boy or white girl trope that really is deserving of its own video, because there's a lot to. Sometimes these individuals will mark themselves to signify this immersion. We see this in characters like Stevie from Moesha, or Mark Wahlberg's character in The Brothers, Isaac from Barbershop, Star from Star. There's countless examples of this to adopt an ethnic aesthetic as a marketing tool or strategy, or just to look cool. But again, next up we have the partner. The partner isn't as abhorrently bad as a savior, which we'll get to, but it takes the flaws of the homie and amplifies them to a new level. But the partners usually come together with the marginalized group that they are paired with a common goal, and thus, for the most part, on even ground. This pursuit of a common goal presents an opportunity to build bonds not contingent upon benevolence or one-way gratitude from a person's allyship, but to perform that allyship for pursuing that goal. And Django aren't shot on sight. Sholes may hate slavery, right? But he definitely doesn't understand how slavery works or racism, nor has he reconciled that his role as an ally for Django is still very much about his own needs and opinions. Or shall we, the most egregious and easy to pinpoint fails of allyship that we see in the media, which is, of course, the savior, most often the white savior.
All these films, whether it's The Blind Side, Green Book, Freedom Writers, Dangerous Minds, Amistad, is that they are more about the white allies than they are about the black people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not written for them. It's written for white audiences to approximate this relationship to racism and racial inequality.
And this is actually, like, ironically, or what most people see when they see these characters or films is allies, usually white people, putting it all on the line, risking their livelihoods, their social status, and their interpersonal relationships and their reputation for the sake of marginalized people. In isolation,
they ever expected.
That bum guy's our coach?
You work for Smith & Stevens Securities?
Yes.
What deal did you blow?
What?
Well, I'm sure you're not coaching this team by choice.
This is why the Savior movie is so bad but so effective to begin with. In The Blind Side, the Michael Oher character, he barely talks throughout the entire movie. We don't really learn much about him other than the fact that he's sad and traumatized. And probably the most egregious example, though, was Green Book, where we spend more time with Italian tough guy Frank, a stock character we've seen in a million other movies, versus a few nuances that provide lessons.
And they establish their class analysis first. And then perhaps a racial analysis emerges of the way things are.
In the swamp, over time it becomes clear to him and the slaves that a fight is inevitable. So after collecting some people together, he eventually begins a series of military campaigns that would make Che Guevara proud. They seize land and resources from the bourgeoisie.
Hello, boss.
Hello, John. I guess you know we're coming down to it now. Another couple of days.
Questions?
Do you leave the light on after bedtime?
I know violent men.
And when they happen in a place like this, that's the most unbelievable miracle of all.